Let's get to the group member specific segment. We're going to talk about immersiveness, where game mechanisms meet theme. Jesse, talk to me.
All right. So this is a concept that this is probably my most favorite concept about gaming that I'm most fascinated with. So, games are sort of, they're fun for different reasons. Like we've talked about flow, and that, for just to recap, the idea that it's where the challenge meets your ability, right?
Yep.
And so if you're really good at something, but it's not very challenging, or you don't have a good opponent, it's not going to be very interesting. Or if you're not very good at something and it's super hard, you're playing against someone who way outclasses you, that's frustrating too. But if you're really good at something and the challenge is really great, or you're playing against that great opponent, that's flow, man. That's that sort of undescribable, except we're describing it now. That's flow. That's why people play board games. And I think there's another element that is sometimes sort of indescribable. And I'm gonna use the term immersiveness, and it's the idea of it's where the game mechanics match the theme. And we've talked a little bit about this. I know Trey's into this concept.
Sure.
You guys were talking about theme last week, and Dimitri says that he likes that, and he says that Terraforming Mars has that. And I agree on a small level. I don't think that is the most sort of immersive game, and I'll kind of get to why that is. But
Sure.
but like I'm talking about like chess. Chess is a great game. Love it. It is not immersive.
No.
It elicits flow, but it's not immersive at all, because we're talking about the actions that you actually take in the game. Is that making you feel like you are actually in what the theme is telling you that this world is?
Chess is far too abstracted for you to connect on an immersion level.
Right.
Yes.
Because I'm taking a piece, I'm going to move it to another square, and that's not... If we're talking about this, we're a kingdom, and maybe I'm the king, and or I'm gonna move my pawns and make them do this and that. But I don't actually feel like I'm doing that. I'm just moving a piece of wood, or across the table.
Right.
But for instance, I'm just gonna say area majority influence.
Okay.
So Twilight Struggle, Star Wars Rebellion, War of the Ring. There's this feeling of looking at a map. There's got lots of games have maps.
Sure.
Right? But sometimes with a theme, like when I'm playing Star Wars Rebellion and I'm looking at the map of the galaxy and I feel like Darth Vader, I feel like an Imperial general, and I'm looking for the rebels. That aspect makes me feel like I am in the game.
All right, but is that a virtue of the mechanic? Or is that just chrome? Is that just pretty plastic pieces and a pretty board? My greatest area control game of all time is El Grande. It is a beautiful map of ancient Spain, but it is little wooden cubes. And the little wooden cubes are here, or they're here, or they're here. I would not say that is a tremendously immersive game. It's not unimmersive for me, but it is a little bit. So... what makes one immersive and the other one not? I wonder if it's not just the pretty plastic pieces.
I don't think it's just the pretty plastic pieces, because Twilight Struggle it's an elegant game. It's not a super gorgeous game, but the fact that you feel...
Twilight Imperium or Struggle?
Twilight Struggle.
Okay. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So I don't think it's I do think the visual element does help.
Yes.
In the immersiveness of it.
Yes.
But there's some there's lots of games with maps. There's a board. It's a board game. But sometimes when you're talking about the theme, or it's like in Twilight Struggle, it's like the U.S. versus Russia, and you are really looking at the map of the world and strategizing. You feel like you are strategizing. How am I going to beat Russia? You feel like you are sitting in the chair, actually doing that.
Yep.
Now, the fact that you have these cards, and you're playing a card, which is an event, well, you can think, oh, that's cool, I'm putting Fidel Castro in Cuba. But no, the action of playing a card is not immersive. The action of rolling dice is not immersive. They're a very essential...
The action of playing a card for me is, I have to say, because I do imagine that event happening. I do imagine that situation has just erupted, and that is what's happening. And so for me, It is immersive. It really does it works for me on that level. And I think that's the thing about immersion. The thing about immersion is that it is a fairly personal experience in terms of what pulls you from standing above the game board and puts you on it.
But see, I disagree because I think that
So it's not a highly personal experience.
it is a highly personal experience. There are certain, again, the action that you're taking of playing a card, unless somehow the theme is doing that. Actual action. I'm not talking about like what you're the world that what you're imagining you're doing, but I'm actually talking about the physical action that you're taking does not immerse you. There's two separate things we're talking about here.
I don't think that's true.
So let me give you another example. Negotiation.
Okay.
Diplomacy.
Yes.
That game's super interesting because now one of the things, the negotiation aspect, that is a real thing.
Yes.
You are actually negotiating. Now, I could play a negotiation card which could have all these, machinations, all these mechanisms happening that could sort of simulate a negotiation. But in diplomacy, you're actually negotiating. You're talking to people. You are.
It's Imperial Confluence in Genoa. You are actually negotiating. But that's different than area control. Because in area control, you're not actually building a ship. You're just taking a little plastic piece and you're putting it on the board. Right. You're not actually piloting that ship. You're just moving it from space A to space B. That is not immersive. That to me is no. But you just said it was immersive.
No, I said that placing a piece, like in chess, is not immersive.
Right.
But the feeling of the fact of the area control, and I'm not sure if that is the right mechanic, but those types of games in these certain themes where you are overlooking a map. Like, I'm not even sure if there's the right term. But the idea that you are looking at a map, and you would actually do that in this world if you were actually doing this.
So what you're looking at is not the actual map, but you're standing in the war room looking at the war plot.
It makes you feel like you are actually doing that. And like El Grande, I don't imagine that I'm overlooking that world, like that actual map. But like I'll play like XCOM, and I'm imagining actually looking at the world in that. You played XCOM?
No, I haven't, but I know the game.
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's got like the tactic stuff, and then it's got like the, you're managing your sort of headquarters and all the different things you're developing.
Okay.
And you're looking at the world and you're imagining how you're going to manage these things. And I actually feel like I'm in that world. I feel like I'm this commander, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
And
well, negotiation games certainly fit that bill.
Right.
Because when you're negotiating, you are legitimately negotiating. When you are, there's no question that WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. There is no separation between the thing that you are doing and what the real world thing you would be doing is.
Right. So that's my point.
Good.
Cooperation, betrayal games. Okay.
Yep.
So Dead of Winter, Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
So that aspect of actually cooperating with somebody.
Hidden roles, trader mechanics.
Yeah.
Dune.
Sure.
Yep.
But so it's hard to pick a whole game that can touch all these bases because you got different mechanics that work. And
of course,
worker placement is a very common and essential, oftentimes mechanic that makes a great game, but it's not necessarily immersive, right?
I mean, yeah. So your definition and my definition of what makes a game immersive are slightly different.
And again, I'm borrowing this word. I'm not sure if this is the best word, but I'm trying to find one word to sort of capture the idea of when your actions meet the theme, the actual actions.
Yeah, what you're talking about is getting as far away from the simulation of something as possible and trying to make it feel real.
Right.
Which is a little bit different than immersion, because I can get immersed in something like when I play a card in Twilight Struggle, I am imagining if I'm Russia, I'm imagining the smoke-filled room in the Kremlin, and we are deciding, okay, we are going to activate the partisans in Cuba. Fidel is going to be in power, and I'm playing that card, and that is what is happening. So for me, it is very immersive because I'm in that experience. What you're saying is that you're playing a card, you're playing something that represents something else, and because of that, it's not immersive by the way you're looking at it.
I'm saying that if there was a bad example, this is just what came to my head as I was imagining what you were talking about. But let's say there's a game where you can execute somebody, right? And you could play I'm going to execute this person, and I play this card, and now they're executed. Versus, let's say you had a prop gun or something,
sure,
and when you did it, you got to pull the trigger. That action,
cash and guns,
exactly right. So the fact that they have that makes it more immersive. It makes you kind of go, "Oh, I'm in this world." It makes you. It's that little step further away from I'm just playing a game to, "Oh, I'm actually here."
Okay.
It empowers you. It makes you go, ooh, like this is fun. I'm actually these people. I was playing a Godfather, Corleone's something or other. Have you played it?
Yeah, I've demoed it.
It was a while ago, but I don't remember. There was something in that game where I had this power, and I actually, like, for a moment went, I actually feel like the Godfather right now. Like, I have this power, and I don't know if it's because I could throw something to Hudson but I was like, I want more of that. And I think it's really what kind of like started this, like, what is that? And made me like analyze it. And like in Dead of Winter, like that feeling of like we're talking about managing zombies, right? There's pieces, there's little zombie figures, and there's our figures, and we have to put them on the board. But we're talking to each other. We're cooperating. There's a potential betrayer, and I actually did feel like this was this was The Walking Dead when we were negotiating each other. I mean, me and Trey got into it one time, and that whole dynamic that was created was because of this mechanic that I think made it really awesome. Right?
Cool.
Social deduction games are naturally like this is bring it back to Blood in the Clock Tower. Like you are actually looking somebody in the eye, and you are, what are you about? What are you doing? Like they're naturally so immersive.
I am actually lying to you right now.
Right.
And I'm not playing a card that says I lie to you. I am lying to you.
So even if people aren't hitting the flow factor, the fact that they're immersed because they're not playing a card that says, "Oh, I do social deduction on him, and I see. Oh, you got me."
Let's also say voting is a mechanic.
That is absolutely. That's another one that's on my list. Voting, trading. You know, even like in Catan. I know you love Catan. You're not actually trading a piece of wood.
No.
But you are trading a card. But the fact that you are actually trading is more immersive. Like if you were to like play a trade card and that did a thing, that would be different than you actually trading a card.
Yeah, I don't see that being any different than playing Fidel in Twilight Struggle. It is no more real.
I disagree because you are actually negotiating with somebody. You are actually trading with them.
But I'm trading a card that represents something, just like I'm playing a card that represents something.
We're talking very slight differences here. I know that on the card it's an image of wood, and so that is not immersive because you're not actually handing a piece of wood, and you're not actually building anything with the wood. But the fact that you are actually trading and your brain is firing off those things of, I'm going to say this to this person and da-da-da-da. You're not playing a trading card, which there are games with trading cards.
Sure.
And that is not as immersive. But the fact that I'm actually going, hey, I really want that piece of wood. What do I need to do? You are actually trading. It is a small one. It's a small factor, but it exists. Same thing with voting. Same thing with, and how about like role playing, like D&D?
Sure, of course.
Storytelling elements, obviously.
Sure, of course, absolutely.
Auction and bidding on things.
Auction puts me right into the role. It depends, right? It depends on how abstracted that auction is. Like high society, for as simple a game it is. I'm a billionaire. I got $1 billion in my hand, and there are all these beautiful things that I can buy, and I want to buy the best. I want to have the I want to be the one on MTV Cribs instead of you.
Right.
That's great. That's wonderfully immersive for such a small, abstract little math game.
Or we talked about social deduction, but about deduction in the sense of like detective. We talked about detective. So
Very
the fact
much so.
that we got the board, that's what we were talking about, how great that feeling is that you're actually a detective.
Yep.
It's immersive because you're actually doing the thing. I'm not playing here's the deduction card, figure it out. I'm actually doing it. And so... I think that it would be, I think people should try to lean into that more if they're designing games is
Sure.
if there is thinking about their theme, if they got that figured out, what mechanics exist that could help them to make it more immersive, to feel like what actions could you do in this game?
Sure.
There could be little adjustments even.
Sure. I mean, by your definition, it's pretty, there's a huge gulf between what we do in strategy games and what we do in your definition of immersion. So that there, by your definition, there might be a much bigger gulf than.
But there's
than you
also a
think
lot of
between them.
gradations in that. Like,
Well, I just said a gradation, and you said no, not really.
what?
Well, for me, playing the cards in Twilight Struggle is
Right.
an immersive act because of the way that I'm viewing what I'm doing, as opposed to a lot of games where when I play a card, it's like, okay, in phase A, I get to do A, and that does not listen. I'm playing a card that is causing a historical event to happen, a historical event I'm aware of, and I am playing the role of the mastermind of the Soviet Empire or the mastermind of the American Empire during the Cold War, and this is my move on the chessboard. But it's not a move on a chessboard. This is something physical and tangible. It is going to change the board. It's going to change the way the board looks. It is going to expand my influence. And I know the history behind this, so for me, that is very immersive. So in terms of gradations,
Right.
that's
I'm just telling you what the where the target is of the feeling.
Sure.
And I'm trying to create the distinction between playing a card and actually doing something that is firing different things in your brain, of you actually doing an activity.
but that's trading. The trading cards.
Trading,
You're trading
yes.
cards.
Right.
So you're saying that the fact that there are cards involved isn't the important part. The important part is that the actual trading is different.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Let me put out a few that for me are things that you haven't mentioned that can be immersive to me. Communication limits. There's a game called Space Alert, Vladich Vodal.
That's on my list here. Yeah. I don't know about communication limits.
There is a point where the recording will go
Yeah.
and when that happens, you can't talk to the other players. You're talking.
okay.
The timer is counting down, and all of a sudden there's a radio interference, and you can't talk to the other players. That to me is one of those moments where when that first happened in
That's great.
that game, I was laughing so hard because I was like, "Oh, that is perfect,"
Right.
and completely immersive. There's one of those moments where I just dove into immersion from my top-down view, and I was on that ship.
Wait, so actually, but on that, so simulation, sometimes coupled with like real time, right?
Sure, real time is very
Captain
much sonar.
And then also, have you played Artemis?
Yes,
I
the
love
bridge simulator.
yes, the bridge simulator. I mean, talk about feeling like you're actually doing the
Oh
thing.
yeah, big time.
That is actually the perfect example. It's more of a video game than a board game, but wow, you actually feel like you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't know if there's a better example.
Completely. No. Well, I mean, that's a video game, and it's made to be a simulation. Video games are more immersive because that's the way they're designed. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Bribery. Santiago. Have you ever played Santiago with us?
I think so.
Yeah, it's the one where one person is the canal overseer and the other people are trying to plant their stuff, and you have to bribe the canal overseer to put the irrigation so that it irrigates your fields.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then you're out of luck. So you're paying money to get him to do what you want to do, and
Is
other
this
people.
an NPC or is this a player?
No, this is a player.
Okay.
Each round, whoever bids the least in that round for the plots of land, for the fields, they become the canal overseer. And they're the only ones that are going to place the irrigation thing that is either going to water those fields or not.
So people bribe you.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it's wonderful.
That's great. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And variable player powers for me.
Yep. That was on my list. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So Dune, Marco Polo. When I'm playing a variable player power, when I'm playing even Marco Polo, Dune, I mean, when it's a licensed title and it relates to something else, it's so much easier to be immersed because you have a whole visual palette, you have a whole story already. But even Marco Polo is really good in that sense because I'm figuring out, oh, okay, I'm Mercator. I run the bazaars from here to Khartoum, and wherever you're going, I'm always getting a little piece of the action, and I get what that is, and that invests me in a story that I'm telling myself as I'm playing the game.
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Just like you feeling like you are some sort of character, that you have a uniqueness, your individuality, and storytelling, like Gloomhaven, like things like that. Like, I don't know, like you feel like you're an individual, you have your own player powers, and there's a story happening. That's all immersive. And it actually makes you feel like you're actually there.
Yes. Yeah, listen, I love games that are able to do that. I think for me, Santiago might be one of the best examples because it is a very much a Euro game. But because of the Canal Overseer, because of that bribery thing, I stop doing the math of what the actions are, and I become this person on the Cape Verde Islands that is just trying to get along, and I've spent all this money to get this beautiful field of peppers, and they're going to dry up and die if this corrupt canal overseer does not put the canal where he obviously should put it. So how much do I have to spend for him to do that? It's a wonderful thing, and I agree with you. I think that more games can have an eye toward that and see what they can do to increase that amount of buy-in where you're not staring down at the board, but you're kind of playing on the board.
Yeah, I'd say so Dimitri mentioned Terraforming Mars, and I was thinking about it, and I don't really feel like I'm a corporation. I think it's a great game.
Yeah.
And you are sort of overlooking a map, but for some reason, I don't feel like I'm the CEO of this company, and I'm trying to, I could tell you what the theme of the game is, but it's not. I don't actually feel that way. But when I'm placing a green cube on a card that's telling me that's an animal, like that doesn't immerse me. That action.
Sure.
And so,
I mean, I feel fairly immersed when I'm playing that game in the sense that I do feel like I'm a corporation, and I do feel like my hand of cards are the various projects that our R&D department have come up with, and choosing which one, how to spend our limited resources in order to do this and to bring this project to fulfillment. And by doing so, I'm literally changing the board before my eyes and literally terraforming Mars. That one works for me. I agree with the latter part of what you said, though, which is taking the one cube of my color, putting it on my thing, and that represents a spaceship, though that represents a plant, that represents a this, is obviously abstracted, but in a game that is so sprawling, you couldn't possibly have. I mean, you would have to have a box that is 10 feet tall with all the different kinds of pieces that you would need to represent all the different things that those things are.
But there are gradations in there. So I'm telling you about like a sort of ideal, right?
Sure.
But there are so many different ways you could do any action that you could simulate what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Whether it's putting a cube there or or I don't know what you would actually do to make this more real, that there's actually an animal there or whatever that action would be. But there are lots of gradations in there that there's maybe a better choice that could, because you found that there are lots of ways that immerse me. This immerses me when I do this.
Sure.
And so I think some people don't think about that. I'll play games. It's like, this could have been a good game, but it's like, I just don't understand why they did this. Like it's so blah.
Yep.
But if they had just tweaked it a little more like this game, because this game, then...
Well, not every game can be immersive. We can understand that, right? There could be amazing games. Some of my favorite games are not very immersive.
Like chess.
Though my favorite game of all time, Democker, is tremendously immersive to me. Why? Because everything I'm doing in the game, I understand completely what it is that I'm doing in a political campaign. Mm-hmm. When I'm putting those pieces on the board, those are my campaign workers. When I am putting a media marker down, I'm doing a media buy. When I'm playing my faction, when I'm playing my shadow cabinet members, I'm putting superstars out there on the campaign trail who are campaigning for me. So even though there is a translation that has to happen in the activity, the sum total of the 8 different things I can do to help my candidate win all feel completely part of a whole. And the most particular one is the fact that this state has these 3 very strongly held opinions, and my party platform, my candidates' positions are these positions, and I need to get them to I need to either change what I'm saying to match them better so that I can get more votes, or I need to go out there, media blitz them, and change their opinion on those sorts of things. That is very immersive to me because that feels very immediate.
Right.
And real.
And what about the interaction between the other players? Like,
Oh yeah, well the forming coalitions happens in that game.
Right.
That is definitely immersion because that is exactly what the conversation is exactly what is happening. Right. It's a one-to-one relationship between that and the competition thereof. Final thoughts?
No, I think we got it.
I think we got it. It's very interesting. I think that you're absolutely right that there are a lot of games out there. Not every game, because some games just will not lend themselves toward this, but there are a lot of games out there that could take some of the mechanics that we've been talking about and fold just a little bit of them in. And if they do, it just does create, you're right, it does create that little bump of that little hit of adrenaline of I am not just dryly playing a strategy game, but I'm in it.
Yes, I think if you're designing a game, it's like, how do you want the player to feel like when you're doing that activity? And then is there a mechanic that you could fold that into?
Yes.
If they could approach it like that, then I think it immediately become much more, oh, I get this. And like, oh, I'm in. Okay, I'm doing the thing. Yeah. Oh, I get this game. That's the idea.
I love it. Jesse, thanks so much.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.